Okay, I have four topics that I wanted to cover, and I probably won't get through this, but the two most important topics I'd like to cover are risk assessment and airflow. Helen and Ty both discussed some mitigation and energy efficiency topics. So go ahead. We're going to skip over some slides here, Cassie.
Sure.
Let's start. Let's start. Go back to that one, last one. I want to bring people's attention to this link to the webinar at the bottom. These two gentlemen provide me some of the information for this presentation. They are experts in the field of airflow and how contaminants migrate through spaces. And I would like to give them credit for their information. Thank you very much, both Mr. Smith and Dr. Kankari. Okay, next slide. So how do you do a risk assessment? Yeah, one of the biggest problems we see is people think, well, gosh, how are we going to do? How are we going to mitigate risk in our building? Well, the first thing you need to do is do a risk assessment, because your whole building may not have to be mitigated. It may be fairly safe in certain parts of the building. So what we want to do is we want to identify what spaces are at risk, or at high risk, or medium risk. So there's a spreadsheet that Mr. Smith has provided me that you can use for this, and he provided me a scrubbed version of that I can distribute if you're interested. And it has marginal input, but it's an incredibly powerful spreadsheet to use. It's been in development for over 20 years probably, and it will help you perform this risk assessment fairly easily. So we need to get 10 items on the occupants in the building. Who's in the building? Are they known occupants? How long are they in the building? Do we have transient occupants that we know nothing about? How long are they staying in the building? Short duration or long duration? So we've got just some basic information on occupants. Now, on the mechanical side, once again, we need 10 parameters. We need to know what type of mechanical system there is, where the supplies and the returns are, and there we're getting into airflow issues. So next slide, please, Cassie. So what we're trying to do is rank these spaces from what space do we really need to pay attention to what space do we not need to pay attention to. It's negligible risk, and so we were trying to rank these spaces. Next slide, please. So the result of this spreadsheet is this. You have your different rooms, and this is just a snippet off of it. You can see we have at the training center room, the space A101, and it's a high risk type of space. We need to pay attention to what are we going to do in the space to mitigate or make it a little bit safer than it is currently. And you can see the conference room, it's also a high risk space. We have people coming in, we don't know where they're coming from, we don't know if they're affected or not. So we got these two spaces that we really need to pay attention to. So let's go to the next slide, please, Cassie. So here's a snippet of that spreadsheet. And it's not everything. So we have space information, and it's really not much other than square footage and some basic notes. We give a label to that space. So we have 10 occupant risk factors. So are they known or unknown occupants? How long are they in that space for? Cassie? Everything's ranked 1 to 4. I'm sorry, Cassie, there we go. Everything's ranked 1 to 4. And then there's weighting factors on each one of these parameters too. And I included the last one, the number 10 of the occupant risk factors, because it is weighted the heaviest, aerosol generation potential. Are we looking at a reading room in the library where no one's supposed to be talking, they're hopefully wearing masks? There's really very little, negligible to low aerosol generation potential. Or are we talking about the balcony in a church where people are singing, where we've already had super spreader events at those instances? So that's why that's weighted so heavily, and that's on a different spreadsheet. This automatically feeds into a second spreadsheet and provides you, it crunches the numbers and provides you what the risk in each space is. And then you can see the HVAC risk factors, what type of ventilation system is there, how much airflow is there, how much fresh outside air are we bringing in? Things like that. Fairly simple things. Everything's 1 through 4. Shouldn't take too long to fill out this spreadsheet and get that first one that I showed you that ranks those spaces. Cassie, next, please. So here's that floor plan that we were looking at. So we see on the right side there that red space and the conference room next to it in the orange space. These are high risk spaces. So we had 4 different mechanical units here, and let's look at this vertically. Let's say the mechanical system on the far left. Well, we've got that one yellow space in the corner. What do we do if we own this building or we work in this building? We might want to tell that person, hey, you know, why don't you work from home? Or maybe that person wants to work from home, and all of a sudden that space turns green. We really don't need to do too much to that space. Now, Ty's recommendations of the 800 ppm are very good. There's a lot of evidence that points to that we should be going below what Ashley recommends at 1200 ppm. The mechanical unit on the right, well, we might have to make some changes, or we might want to think alternatively. We need to think outside the box sometimes. That training center in the top left corner that's red, well, maybe we just do our training online, you know, and get rid of that red space. Or we remove half the tables and reduce the density of people in that room to change the risk factor in that room. So it's not always mechanical rated. There's other ways to mitigate the danger in a space or the risk in a space.